this is a room full of psychotherapists. There's some on Zoom, lots on Zoom. And one of the things therapists have such a hard time doing is like believing in their clients when clients come to see them. And
Did you tell him how we met?
no, don't tell them. Are you gonna tell them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So Charlemagne is a friend of mine, Charlemagne the guy from Breakfast Club. And every time he would see me, he would say, "You need to get therapy." And I was like, that's fucking disrespectful. You know what I mean? Like, don't project your issues on me, you know? Because every time he would see me, and if you watch one of the last Breakfast Clubs I just hosted a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago.
Like, yeah, a few days ago.
Yeah, a few days ago, somebody called in and the caller was like, "Oh, I have a question for Jason." And I was literally ready to just tear his ass up. And Charlemagne was like, "Yo, relax. Like, why are you ready?" And then I said, "Cause I always have to be prepared." And the guy was really nice, and then he went for me. And I said, "See, that's why I see y'all are weak. Y'all don't want to be ready, and that's why you get taken down. I'm gonna always be ready." But I say that to say, he would always say to me, like, "You need therapy." Then here comes Tiffany Haddish. She's a friend of mine. She said, "Oh, you should talk to my therapist." I'm like, "Yo, I don't know what's going on, but like, I'm not trying to be in therapy. Like, I got my own way of dealing with stuff." And
I do not want him to finish this story. I just want to make that very
my
clear.
way of dealing with shit, like I when my brother got murdered, I didn't even know I had, like when I said earlier, I saw my mom as a drug addict, crackhead, didn't want to be that. I had started replacing like the pain with alcohol. So like I would work all day, party all night. It's just partying, but like we're getting trashed, pass out, and then go to work the next day. So for me, I wasn't alcoholic because I was functional. I could still run the business. I could still work my job. I could do it all. I still had all my faculties. I was still a sharp, whatever, but I was partying, and I was just a party person. And so I did that from like 19 until like 46. Until like 45. So Tiffany, she's like, "Yo, maybe you should like, talk to a therapist or whatever." I'm like, "Nah, I'm cool." Come to find out, they both are in cahoots because they both have the same therapist. But I'm like, okay, if they both have a therapist that they trust, maybe I'll meet them. One day I'll meet them, whatever. So one day I'm at a party with Tiffany, and she says, "I had some people join us. I got a Sprinter." I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna go to the Abbey. This is a gay club. It's like hell. We're going to hell."
Wait, can I pause you? I'm going to interject something real quick.
Yes.
Tiffany texts me. She's like, "We're at this address, Uber here." So I take an Uber there. And a Sprinter, I didn't know what a Sprinter was, but it's like a private jet on wheels. And there's Jason, and he's the coolest dude ever. It's nighttime, he's got sunglasses on. Mm-hmm. He's just sitting there. He barely even looks at me. I sit in the Sprinter, I'm just looking at Tiffany. And Jason turns to Tiffany and says, "Did you tell him where we're going?" And Tiffany says, "No." And the first words he ever said to me ever, Tiffany says no. He turns to me and he goes, "We're going to hell."
Facts. And so, drive us to hell. So we go to the Abbey. The Abbey, for those of you that know, is the world's most famous gay and lesbian bar. There's strippers everywhere on poles, flying across half naked. We got bottles, we're getting drunk, and the therapist is sitting there. I didn't even know he was a therapist. So we got really trashed that night. We had a good time. He exited. It was definitely in a venue he had probably never been to in his life, never experienced that.
Okay, I'm going to pause you again. I got to interject what arriving at a club was like with Jason Lee. He says driver takes us to hell, brings us to the Abbey. They open, and there's literally a red carpet that lets us out, takes us to our section, escorted by naked people. In the club, I saw things that I wasn't prepared to see.
Yeah, well, it's normal.
And Jason's just like,
But I think for me, like the thing I love about like me, and this is why I will say, like there were times where I would never say things I like about me, because self-love was the journey that Tiffany started me on, and she would always say, "Oh, I love you," and I'd be like, "I didn't want to hear all that," and then I would hang up on her, then I would have to force myself to call her back to say it, because you're supposed to tell people you love them when they tell you that they love you. And then it just naturally became a thing where like now it's not as much of a thing. Well, the thing I love most about me is I don't care if I'm talking to the Vice President of the United States or I'm talking to a stripper, a transgender person, a homeless person, a drug addict, a blood crip, a kid. Like you're gonna always get me. Like this is just who I am. I don't have the time or I don't have the privilege of trying to figure out how to. Now I can code switch. There's a difference between code switching for me and then like switching up. I don't have the need to like define who I am for anybody that can't digest me. Like this is what it is, and if you can't digest me, then God did not put me in your life to be around you, and you in my life to be around me. And I'm not apologetic about that. And so it was good that he was able to see it, because I always thought that going to therapy was about facing judgment. So being able to have somebody come in and see my world, like see it, not me like come, you know, he's been to my award show, he's been to this, he's been to that, but like to come see, this is how I am in my social time. I'm not thinking about a therapist, I'm not thinking about a restriction, I'm not thinking about performing, I'm just being me. And then when we had our first session, I think he said something like, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm like, well, that's what people go to therapy for, because there's something wrong with them. But that was able to help me let my guard down and just be like, okay, well, here's all the different layers. And I think at the time, I wasn't trying to stop drinking. I just said, oh, maybe I should drink less. Because I was spending like $50,000 a month on alcohol, like partying, clubbing, and this and
to
that.
pause you for a second, he just used an example where he said, you get me, which I actually want to talk about, like how you learn to be so solid in your truth and authenticity. But he said, you get me, whether you're a stripper or this or that or the vice president. He means that literally. Like I've been talking to him and he'll say, hold on one second, this is the White House. Literally, these are the people that are calling him that he is calling. He's
and
not...
strippers call me too. I got a call yesterday from a stripper who don't speak English, so we talked through a translate app.
But this is
I'm
not...
just saying, like my Rolodex is vast.
This is not a euphemism. He literally will say, sorry, Elliot, I'm getting a call from the White House. And I'm like, okay. I've never heard these things come out of a person's mouth before. But it's a literal thing for him. So the journey about like learning to live in my truth and in my space and accepting maybe there's nothing wrong with me, this man has lived it in the most extreme circumstances, because most people don't have that vast of an experience of who they would talk to in a given day. He does.